Hi, my name's Emily, and I'm going to tell you about my comparative study. It's qualitative and exploratory, and it's situated in the fuzzy front end of the design process. Here are the 4 methods that were compared and contrasted. First is the focus group. Then there's image collaging, where people are pasting images and paper on a bigger piece of paper. Then there's Sandquery, which is based off of Sandplay, and I developed it in 2010 with my advisors. It's based off of a psychotherapy that's nonverbal. There are other design researchers that have used sand as a research method, in the past and recently, and then for centuries people have been using sand as a way of mapping experience, telling stories, doing math. All sorts of wild things have happened in a sandbox. So I developed this Sandquery thing, and then I wanted to make a virtual environment, and that turned into what I named Enactavision. Over time, it developed into something that uses the Microsoft Kinect. You select virtual objects, and then these virtual objects will follow your body and hands in virtual space and play back on an animated loop. It's a collaborative environment, so you can use it alone or with up to 3 people. So why is this important? We want to quickly and cheaply prototype the future so that we can envision what we want to happen before it happens. We want to get people who speak different languages, who have different vocabularies, architects, scientists, engineers. We want all of these people to be able to collaborate so we can begin to solve huge problems. So that's the why. Here's the setup of the study, the research design. I'm showing this to you because I want you to know there were 36 people in the first round of this study who are all different people, and then it turned into a second round. I won't have time to talk about that. But there are 36 people, so there were 3 groups of 3 for each of the 4 methods. And we're really exploring movement of the body, movement of tools in terms of collective creativity. So there are different theories of embodiment, and all of these theories seem to be within different disciplines, within psychology, sociology, philosophy, communication, computer science, education. There's so much written about the body and how it affects our expression and our ability to express our experiences. So I'm just trying to pull that information into design research. And here's Tony Robertson's study where she's studying designers using their body and using tools and shared meaning, sorts of objects of shared meaning to express themselves. And what I'm trying to bring to the table is I want this idea to come into the world of non-designers. What happens if we give non-designers and designers the tools with which to express themselves and encourage them to use their bodies to prototype the future? Here's the participatory prototyping cycle, and this is a quote from Liz Sanders. She says that the participatory prototyping cycle is a framework for action and a model for co-creation and design. So we don't have to select one of these circles. We can encourage the iterative cycle of all of them and then get people to express themselves to help encourage expression. Here again are the 4 methods. This is what happened for each of the conditions. So I introduced why we were there. I gave everyone 5 questions, sort of like a discussion. So all of these questions were future-based. And then the main question was, what's next? So depending on the tools, in the focus group, people were given pen and paper, and in image collaging, pen and paper and images and glue and scissors, and then the Sandquery, they were given, the sandbox with tools and marbles and all sorts of shapes, three-dimensional shapes. And then in the virtual environment, people were given virtual tools, the Enactavision application to use to be able to express themselves as a group. I let them know that this question was open-ended and that they could answer it in whatever way they saw fit. After about 20 minutes, people presented their ideas. And then after everything was all done, I asked people to please fill out a questionnaire individually so I could see more about their experience. So let's set up some of the definitions. What's creativity? It's the ability of seeing, making new and appropriate things. And to me, collective creativity then means the thing is new and appropriate according to the group. So I video recorded all of the sessions and audio recorded them. I looked at what they made and how they behaved while they were making and presenting. I looked at what they said, and I noticed how they felt about their experience and their post-questionnaires. And when I say I wasn't the only person looking at the data. I also had someone else looking at the data. It's easy to see if someone's moving or not, but it's not so easy to determine if someone's creative or not. So that definitely required a second opinion. This looks like a computer glitch, but it's not. I'm going to explain it. So this blue stripe is person 1. This light blue stripe, person 2. This is person 3 in the pink. Here it is zoomed in. So this is the top, and then this feeds to the bottom here. So I have all sorts of timestamps throughout this when actual behaviors or phrases are being said. Like I said, person 1, person 2, person 3, and then I'm putting X's over here depending on what's happening. So I'm looking at the making part of the activity here. I'm looking at how they're moving. I'm looking at how they're engaging with each other. This goes on the bottom of that last one, and then this goes under here. So I'm looking at how they're behaving during the telling part of the activity. And then the content is what they're actually saying. Are they talking about the past, present, or the future? Are they talking about reality? Or is it fantasy? And sort of the interpretation part comes in this part of the spreadsheet. And then this is a whole session sort of summary. So turn that into 12 sessions, and the spreadsheet looks like this. This is exactly what the post-questionnaire part of it looked like for the participants. And here's the word bank to the left. I let them know that they could put their own words in there. Choose your own words. It doesn't matter. Just let me know how you're feeling. Positive experiences go up here. Negative experiences down here. Let's look through the highlights. Okay. So focus group session 1, people were using mostly words. So they have a pen and paper, and they're talking about their own personal futures. Session 2 in the focus group, people made a robot butler, and they're visiting other planets, but most of the time they spent talking about problems that we need to fix before we can think about the future. Focus group session 3, people made a timeline of their own personal life and where they want to be in the future. I want a bigger house, I want more money, I want grandchildren, all these things. So in summary, a focus group seems pretty, it evokes individualistic behavior. And this is how people felt during their experience. This is a summary of how they felt, where you can actually follow a story. So these are all 3 people combined, where you can follow and say, okay, this person thinks that my intro was comprehensive and then stimulating for the 5 questions, and then thought that exploring the main topic was exposing the what's next, and then felt very shy and self-conscious during the presenting. So here's image collaging, and we're beginning to move beyond the personal into more community-based and global and spiritual futures, where here's heaven, here's earth, here's the transcendental point in between. It's very metaphorical and beautiful. In session 2 of the image collaging, things go south on earth. That's a quote, where we have to find another place to live. There's a dino dog, sort of hybrid animal happening. In the session 3, there's cloning, there's dogs and cats getting along, there's futuristic cities, futuristic clothing, and more aliens with this landing station here for refueling spaceships. So image collaging, we can see how they felt about their experience here. And here's Sandquery, where people are telling stories, and that's sort of the transition from focus group to image collaging to Sandquery, where people are really beginning to tell stories as a group. So it's becoming more collective for whatever reason. And people are talking about their death, but in sort of more metaphorical ways, and also what happens after death. So this person has risen and is going to heaven, and then down here there's good things happening in the middle, and then sort of the dangerous things are on the edges. Over here there's a story happening with this is the past, this is the present, this is the future, so there's very clear markings happening, and sort of situations and stories of what's happened and what will happen, what could happen. And in that session the transcript is enormously long, pages and pages and pages, so people were really talking for whatever reason. In this session, people are this doll character walks through the entire scene, and there's a realistic and mysterious past that she's walking through and trying to understand, and she's avoiding lots of dangers. The dangers are put away and sort of compartmentalized for safety. There's lots of danger, but there's a way out of the danger. There's a way through it. So Sandquery is way more collective than the 2 previous methods, and here's how they felt about their experiences. Enactavision, let me just quickly demo for you. You drag an object from here, put it in one of these zones, and then it'll populate on the screen. So basically this person is the director, where he's feeding people objects and then pressing record when they say go, and then they begin to build layers to tell a story. And stories they did tell, and they were really timeless. This session in particular, people were talking about moon dust and nanoparticles and the potential to save the human race and all sorts of wild ideas. They were using their hands and their whole body. So in this session, people were talking about space and time collapsing into one thing. And in this session, it was a little pessimistic, where the doll and the cat go on a walk and experience all sorts of dangers and problems, and experience this knowledge blob and good and evil and all sorts of interesting things. And the thing about Enactavision is that people were completing each other's stories. So there would be a half of a sentence, and then another person would complete that half of a sentence, and then another person would complete that part of the sentence. And that's really what made Enactavision unique between the 4 methods, was that it was highly collective and highly creative. So here's how people felt. about their experience? So is it collective? Is it creative? Down here is collective, and here is creative. So according to this study, if you want people to be collective and creative, enactment might be an appropriate lead activity. So instead of just making and telling alone, if we use enactment also, it could really enhance the design research that we're doing, that we're trying now. So the next steps could be to replicate a similar study to see what happens. Enactavision was so different from the other methods, and I'm not sure why. It could have been the virtuality of the method or the actual whole physical body being used, so there could be a study where there could be an exploration of virtual objects in full size, full scale, and comparative sort of equivalent physical study with full scale physical objects to see which was different. And then the most useful thing out of the study could be when to use what. So if you want people to talk a lot, for some reason the Sandquery method evoked that, and if you want people to be really, really highly creative and far out in the future, for whatever reason, a method like Enactavision worked well for that. So if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you, so please don't hesitate to connect with me. Thank you.